What is up everybody, Kai here, and today we will go over the questions from you guys. We are basically doing a Q&A, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Please keep in mind that everything is subject to change because it was a beta test, so we'll see. Anyways, let's get into this. Question 1 from TZX. Was it true that the game doesn't have loading screens anymore? Well, that is correct. There are no loading screens between zones unless you teleport from a field area to the town, but the small lines like the Japanese version had that separated each area within a field is completely gone. Of course, there is still a loading screen when you teleport from a field area to a different field area, but that is natural. When you run around, there are no loading screens. Let's move on to question 2. From Lil Oreo, Alex, and Dio. Is there gonna be pay to win items in the gacha system? If not, then is it gonna be pure cosmetic? First off, yeah, there is a gacha system, but to put it simply, it's even more free to play than the Japanese version's gacha was. There are only pure cosmetics and things like saloon tickets, nothing that affects your character's power at all. I would definitely say this is not a gacha game based off what we know. Let's move on to question 3. From the Shadow Hatter and F9 Exile. Is character creation in controller support, PC port? Is the customization better or worse? Yes, character creation is still within the game, of course. And to answer Exile, in my opinion, it's better. I haven't messed around with it a ton myself, but the coloring itself is already better than the Japanese version was for costumes. Other than that, it has everything the Japanese version had and more, simply put. Controller support, there was no controller support in the beta as far as I'm aware, but it's something we will likely see in the future. PC port, of course, I played the game on PC myself. It's completely different to the mobile version as well when it comes to UI, and the UI plans to change even further in the future. Let's move on to question 4 from Kitra, Mika, and Salt. How different is the story, and since the class morals are more defined, is it possible to clear the story as a healer, or is it recommended to switch classes? Regarding the story, it is completely different and completely changed. The other characters are gone, no more Feste, Jake, etc. There's no sign of the old characters. The story, however, was not received that well in the beta test. I played and will likely get more changes, so we have to see how it will be in the future. As for class switching, yes, you can switch classes whenever you unlocked a second class. As for the healers, they can clear story dungeons quite fast. They are a healer but still do a good amount of damage, which is a good thing, of course. Move on to question 5 from Choo Choo. Will there be a sword and shield class? Will there be double gun and double sword classes, etc.? Yes, there will be a sword and shield class, that is correct. This was basically confirmed in the lost test when people were digging through the files from what I know. However, I do not know about the other classes. The Twin Striker may make a return because that model and weapon was used in one of the tower floors as well as a gun. So we will have to see in the future how that will be. Let's move along to question 6 from Yule. What are the chances of this being a quick cash grab which will hit end of service in a year? Do you think they'll actually try to keep it going, or are they using it for a quick buck? I feel like the chance of this being a cash grab is rather small. Keep in mind, this is also by Tencent and they do not quote-unquote need to make more money than they already have. If this were a cash grab, I feel like it would have been visible by the current state of the game, but Bakura is obviously trying their hardest with the closing ladders, which I covered in another video, as well as them just trying their darndest to make the game successful and good. And if that was not the case, if it was a cash grab, the changes would not happen. So we'll have to see how it will be in the next test, and we can base more off that, I imagine. Let's move on to question 7 from Not Storm. First of all, good morning indeed, well, afternoon for me. Do you think Tencent will adopt the game strategy of launching directly globally, or do you think they will launch it first in China? I think it's possible that it launches in China first, but there's always a possibility of them launching it globally simultaneously, since Tencent, of course, is not silly and they are aware that we are basically desperate for a new anime MMO of any type at this point. So I think they will try to release it sooner rather than later. Let's move on to question 8. Will there be proximity chat to socialize with other players? I do not know if there will be proximity chat. Personally, I'm all for it, and I would love to see just people yelling at mobs in the wild, or like trying to communicate to friends or something like that. However, there is a voice chat within the game for parties at the moment, which I used personally with friends, and it worked really well. So it is not out of the question. Let's move on to question 9 from Rengoku and Dentro. How does the game feel compared to the original version, and if the combat remains the same or if there's still cancel tag? The combat feels a little different from my experience. I played Blue Protocol for very long. In my opinion, it feels a bit smoother, I would say, even because when I was playing tank, the attacks just felt really good to use, to put it that way. However, I do not know about cancel tag since I didn't really try to mess around with that much in the beta. I was rather focused on having fun and just playing with friends and going through the story and things like that. Let's move on to question 10. Will it be a battle pass? Will it be like the JP version where you buy it once to complete it again? Yes, there is indeed a battle pass. I do not know if you are able to buy it again, however, upon completing it, since we were not able to complete it. Personally, I don't think that will be the case. However, even if that is not the case, I think it would be fine, since they also need a source of money, and battle pass is a good consistent source of money from players, I feel like. However, of course, there's also a free version, so you don't need it either. Let's move on to question 11. Will Star Resonance be released in Japan? Well, it's an interesting question indeed. Personally, I think that it will release in Japan, and yes, I have my reasoning for that. During the beta test, I went to the files, upon suggestions from others, and looked for a language folder. Upon finding it, I found this in the screenshot right here. Languages, Chinese, Japanese, and English, meaning a release for Japan is very likely. However, the folders for the languages were empty for now. And on top of that, these folders did not exist in Blue Protocol Japanese version, meaning that it's more likely to release in Japan. Let's move on to question 12. Now this is the question of all time. Anything about it coming to the stateside? How long will the global expansion be? Release date? From Gamer Guy, Kyon, and Noel. A release date I definitely do not know. However, as I answered in the previous question, it is likely that it is coming to global, based on there being English language folder in the files. My personal guess, if I were to take a wild guess right now, okay, for when global would release, I would say in the next 6 to 12 months that we may see news for a global version, or Japanese version for that matter, at all. Outside of that, I cannot give you more information because I do not know myself and I don't want to spread false information. Keep in mind, it's just my educational guess. Alright, let's move on to question 13 from eCloud. Is there any pre-registration for the mobile version coming soon? Yes, I believe you can already pre-register on the Wii Game Launcher on PC, which requires you to have WeChat to log into the Wii Game Launcher. Question 2. Will the game be free to download, or do we need to buy it like Final Fantasy Online? The game will be free to play. You don't have to spend any money to get access to it. Question 3. How does crafting work? There was not a lot of crafting in the game per se. There was some cooking, which requires you to have fish and gather materials, but nothing insane. However, they are actively implementing more life skills, which was mentioned in the closing letter of the beta test, so we can likely see more things related to crafting in the future test. For those who don't know, there is a future test that was already confirmed at the end of the last test, so we'll have to see when that is. Anyways, that was all your questions. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you remember to like, comment, and please subscribe, I would appreciate it. And then I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.